Max Towle with Newstalk ZB for Wellington Mornings with Nick Mills.
Great.
First of all, congratulations. A wonderful spectacle and a
thanks.
wonderful occasion for Wellington with the premiere in the city. What's your impression of Wellington whenever you come into the city?
Well, I live here.
Well, in Wairarapa, South Wairarapa, but the city...
We have
you
a house
have a home
we have a
in
house in
Wellington?
town in Roseneath, yeah.
Do you spend much time in the city?
Yeah, I mean, for example, finishing the Avatar films for the last couple of years, every day is here. In fact, I have a hard time getting over to the farm.
Right.
You know, although I can edit over there, but I can't do a lot of the finish work over there in terms of sound mixing and so on. And that we do it at Park Road Post, right? And our offices are based at Stone Street.
There seems to be a sort of impression at the moment in the city that it's stagnating, that things perhaps aren't as...
The city itself?
The city itself. It isn't as thriving as perhaps it should be. Is that your impression?
That's not my impression. And I don't have the actuarials that show that we're down in GDP or whatever. I don't know that. I don't know what the metrics are for that. I was certainly involved in that group that was the Future of Wellington sort of ad hoc town hall kind of group, and that seemed to be the impetus for pulling that together. But that's just not my personal impression. But again, I'm quite focused in the screen sector. I would say in terms of screen sector, we're down, definitely. Like I said, my base of operations is at Stone Street, and that studio's had tumbleweeds blowing through the stages for probably about a year and a half now.
Job losses at Weta Effects as well this year.
Yes, exactly. So everything's down. The whole theatrical market is down globally, which is not good news for anybody in the entertainment business. And I think that, we have to work hard here in New Zealand, I think, going forward to recapture that share of the production market that we used to have. And I think that the little incremental change to the rebate scheme recently it's an effort in the right direction, but it's far from sufficient to do that. And I also think that we need to focus on training because we need depth of crew, and I see all the crew aging forward without replacement coming in behind them, and I don't want to lose that knowledge base and that capability. So it's hard to encourage young people to come into these trades when demonstrably we're not getting as much production. So it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg problem.
Do you interact much with politicians? Do you do much lobbying for the rebate, for instance, for improving training, these pathways?
I've found it healthy to not interact with politicians as much as possible. That said, I'm more than willing to meet with whomever is interested in helping to bolster the screen sector in the country. Yeah, I want to be involved in that going forward. I think it's important to have the voices of, because I straddle two worlds, right? I mean, I don't spend much time in Hollywood, and I don't think of myself as a Hollywood guy, but I definitely know all those people, and I know how they think.
Well, it feels like we're about as far away from Hollywood as possible here.
And that's a good thing.
Is that part of the reason that you live here and you want to be here as much as possible?
Absolutely. I just, I wanted to raise my kids in a value system that wasn't highly materialistic, like in Los Angeles. We lived in Malibu, which was nice and kind of secluded, but you were still caught in that sort of Gucci mentality, and that's not who we are. That's not how we see ourselves. I'm talking about my wife, Susie, and I, and that's certainly not how our kids see themselves. They're all young adults now, but they're deeply appreciative of our move to New Zealand as a family now, and have fit in and want to fit in and have absorbed a lot of the culture. So, and I mean, even including Maori culture in that, two of our kids have Maori partners. So they're learning a lot, te reo and all that, and they mock me because of my pronunciation, which is, fair, I would say.
So in terms of the future, touch wood, the two next sequels do go ahead. You're committed to working with Weta Digital, for instance, filming parts of the movie in New Zealand. You're committed to Wellington and the country. Yeah,
I think it's safe to say. I mean, look, we have to reevaluate the business model for Avatar in general based on how well the film does, this next film. The market is changing and shifting worldwide with the advent of streaming and the partial collapse of the theatrical marketplace. Avatar movies may not be viable no matter where we make them. that's an issue that I'm prepared to confront. And we also have, like I said, challenges right here in New Zealand. So to me, it's going to be an analytical process for the next year or so. We're not just going to plunge straight back into production. And there are other things I want to do as well, other stories I want to tell.
Well, in terms of the stories you want to tell, with the Avatar films now, with Fire and Ash, when you start work on the film, are you working from a point of the visuals you want to show, or do you start with the story you want to tell, or is it all symbiotic?
I think it's a combination of both. I always say in my writing process that I work forward from character and I work backward from set pieces that I imagine that I want to see. Because I start as a visual artist, right? I draw and paint and all of those things. Not so much lately, but I used to. And some of the visual ideas have been around for a long time. I haven't even gotten to them yet. So I have visual set pieces, I have visual ideas, some of which are inspired by some of the other artists that are working on the film. Oh, we don't have time for that one this time, let's push that down the line. But I always work forward from character, and that's obviously the most important driver, because the general consensus we're getting on this film, anecdotally, is that it's the most emotional by far of the three. And that's by design, and you do that by familiarizing the audience with the characters and their unique sets of problems, and then putting them under increasing jeopardy. And I don't mean physical jeopardy, like they could get killed by the ash people, but I mean emotional, psychological jeopardy.
There's also, you can't help but feel this underlying message about climate protection, climate action, how important it is to protect our world.
Yeah.
The current government in New Zealand has been seen as perhaps anti-climate in some of the ways their measures have been rolled out.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, look, I think that typically a more right-leaning government that's business-friendly is going to wind up in a kind of an anti-environmental stance, or at least being very neutral, certainly not going to push that agenda, and that's true everywhere. I'm much more concerned with the backlash in the U.S., where they're literally unwinding all of the good work that has been done. I mean, it was just in the Los Angeles Times yesterday that the EPA, the so-called Environmental Protection Agency, when enlisting all of the causes of climate change, neglected to mention fossil fuels, even though the scientific consensus is that that's accounting for 90+% of it, sort of anthropogenic sources. So I would say that even though I'm not in favor of New Zealand turning its back on climate, at least we're not going backwards here. And we may not be progressing the way we should. So look, I mean, any responsible citizen of the world, especially in a country like ours, where we celebrate nature and we celebrate a kind of almost imaginary, pristine version, of New Zealand, where we protect the birds and we have predator-free zones and all that sort of thing. We need to be consistent, because you can't preserve that natural ecosystem with the entire world changing. Winds, I mean, especially right here in Wellington, winds are going to become even more active in a more dynamic, heated world, which is where we're heading.
Very briefly, your favorite place to go out to eat, drink, coffee in Wellington?
Ooh, well, I'm vegan, so there are some good vegan restaurants. I don't want everybody flocking there, so I'm not going to say the name. Otherwise, I'll never get a reservation.
No, fair enough. Well, thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated.
Okay, pleasure. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Jane. I appreciate it.